Welcome to our autumn gardening guide with myself, Andy Peasgood and Caledonian Horticulture. Now, even though we've had wet and rainy weather, these are 12 jobs that you can do at any time in autumn. Autumn is a great time for planting trees and shrubs. It's when they go into dormancy. So by getting them into the ground now, then they can sit there throughout the winter, and then come spring when the ground warms up, those roots can put on some really good growth for the season ahead. Here I have a Pittosporum Tom Thumb, and I'm getting it in the ground now, and you can potentially do this in a couple of weeks' time as well. Now is a good time for dividing, moving and planting out any perennials, and if you're looking for any advice on division, you can check out our 2024 spring gardening guide where we divide some Carex. Now here I've got some stackies, and instead of planting them out right now because I want to leave that for a couple more weeks, I'm going to use these canes, and I'll pop the canes into the ground just to show exactly where I want to plant them. You can also use some electrical tape and a Sharpie to write down what that plant is, and it should survive any wet weather. Sowing sweet peas happens in spring and in autumn. The autumn sowing means you'll get an earlier crop of flowers coming through in the next year. I'm using a dibber to punch holes into the soil to a couple of centimeters deep. And then I've got my sweet pea seeds here. Now there are different ways that you can plant them out. You can either pop them straight in, you can leave them in water overnight, or you can nick them. I like to nick them. And what nicking is where you're just taking off the outer layer, a little portion of the outer layer of its shell. That way it allows water to get in to then help with germination. This is also a great time to clean your containers. It's good to do it inside when you're replanting anything, just to clean it out and make sure everything is good and that there's no sort of pests or diseases that I've carried out through there. On the outside as well, I like to remove the algae. Some people like to keep it for character, but I find that the algae spreads very quickly, and at the same time it then spreads onto any hardscaping, so it really doubles up and triples up my cleaning jobs to do. So for here, I'm going to use my secret ingredient, which is a toilet brush. It's designed for such a shape, and it makes really light work of cleaning out the containers. It's time for the last lawn cut. I've already done mine when I had a drier day, but I haven't done the edges yet. You want to do it now because the grass is going to stop growing. So by cutting it down, trimming the edges, it will stay as is over the winter, and then in spring next year, it will start putting on that growth. Plant out bulbs, especially your daffodils, but don't forget to leave tulips until November when it's colder. Today I'm planting out fritillaria, which are a really tall growth with a magnificent flower on top. Now the bulb has a big hole in the bottom, so if you plant it like this, it can pool with water and then rot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some horticultural grit at the bottom of the hole. You don't have to do this, but I'm doing it as a precaution. And then I'm going to plant it on its side so that it doesn't pool with water. It will rectify itself, but that will be with new growth, and it should be okay to last the season and hopefully into next season as well. February and March are ideal times for cutting back your hedging. Now I'm aware it's autumn, it's not February and March, but if you have a bare root hedge planted, it's important in the first few years that you're reducing that growth. That's because we want to keep an even pattern in growth. If you don't do this, it can thin out along the bottom and then become really top heavy, and then it's not even. So today, with a pair of secateurs, I'm just reducing the growth, and I'm doing it by hand. I'm not using a big electric hedge trimmer or anything like that because I'm really conscious of any wildlife. It's a manageable hedge, so I have checked for any nesting birds. There's nothing in there, so I advise you to do the same. And if you are doing this, just move along the line very carefully, very quietly, just removing and reducing that growth. That way, next year, it can fill out really evenly. The wildflowers have finished putting on their show for the year, and they were really magnificent here. Now it's a perennial mix, so it should come back next year, but to help that, I'm going to cut back any wildflower and then I'm going to lay it down in situ for about 2 weeks. I'll occasionally walk across it. Now I'm going to do that to break down any seed heads and allow that to go into the soil, and hopefully some of them will germinate, keeping and maintaining the wildflower in place. Bring in any non-hardy or sensitive plants, such as sempervivums. Now's a good time to comb through your sedges. Here I've got Carex Amazon Mist, and it's an evergreen, so it will go through the winter. Some of it will die back, but I want to give it a helping hand, and I'm going to comb through it, where essentially, and you should really wear gloves with this, but I'm not right now, I'm just going to take my hand and use it like a comb, and I'm just going to comb through, and then all this growth is going to come off. I'll keep doing that across all of the sedges here, ready for winter. Clean out your veg beds. Here I had tomatoes, so now's the time, once they've been cut back, to pull it out, shake off that root here, and then put it away. And I'll do that across all my veg beds. That way, next year, they're good to go for any soil preparation and then planting out seeds. Plant out any winter flowering plants for that interest and colour throughout the colder months. Here, I have a Skimmia rubella, and I'm going to plant it out here. I'm just going to check the roots. They're fine. I don't need to pull that apart at all. It's not pot bound at all. And then I'm going to pop it in here, cover it, make sure it's firmly planted. And then to finish, I'm going to put some horticultural grit to cover that. And that just makes sure that it's nice and decorative.